Have you ever had a dream? An idea so big, it gives you goosebumps when you think about it. Or a goal somewhere out there in the world that when you share it with someone, they might laugh. Or better yet, when you leave the room, they might start placing bets against you. I have. And as I look back over the course of my life, I realize that this idea, this theme of going out and striving for the biggest, scariest things I can get my hands on, it's one of the only things that is consistent. It's the narrative that runs through the theme of my life. And I've had this incredible opportunity to be a part of the Lululemon family for years, and so privileged to be here today. And I know we are a goal-setting culture. We are a dream-chasing culture. And so today I want to share a little bit about my experience. I want to talk about the 3 ingredients that have to be a part of any goal that I set or any dream that I chase. And I want to talk about why that's important. Why should we care? But to do that, I want to take us all the way back down memory lane to the first time I set a big, hairy, audacious goal. So I want to introduce you to the grade 7 version of Tyrell. And I was fairly naive because I had set this goal to be the best basketball player in Canada. One of the only ones to earn an NCAA Division I scholarship. At that time, some years, no Canadians were earning that privilege. Grade 7 would be the first time that that dream got challenged. Because my coach came to me one day and he said, "Tyrell, you're doing an amazing job. If you're really serious about this dream, the next thing you have to do is get down to the States. You have to play in front of the guys who you need to beat out for that scholarship. You need to play in front of the coaches that are going to give it to you." And I was in luck because my coach had somehow lined up a team and a coach all the way over in Philadelphia for me to go and spend the summer playing with. Now let me describe the context of this trip before I go any further. I would be traveling by myself for 6 weeks across the continent into a new country. I would be playing with a bunch of players and a coach that I, my parents, and even my high school coach had never met in their lives. I came to find out that this would be one of the roughest inner city teams in all of Philadelphia after arriving. I would be playing against some of the most fierce competitors my age in the world. Did I mention that I was 12 years old? And so I want to introduce you to ingredient number 1, because that's what I was up against. And I call it the deep end. Because the decision was mine to make. Somehow, I still don't know how, my coach convinced my parents that this would be a fantastic idea. And so they came to me and they said, "This is your choice. This is your decision." And it felt like I was up on the high dive, looking down into the deep end of life. And I was trying to gauge, do I have enough courage to do this? How deep is that water? How long am I going to have to swim to survive? And I agonized with that question for the weeks that I had to deliberate it up on that high dive by myself. And finally, my coach and my parents came back to me. They asked me what I was going to do. And I had this incredible intuitive moment where I went right down into my gut. And I asked myself, what are you going to do? How are you going to live the best version of yourself, your best life? And I knew, as some of you have probably had this feeling, in a second, that I had to take that jump. Based on the knots and the butterflies, I knew what the right call was to make. And before I could let that thought travel from my gut up into my head, where I knew as well that the stories of fear and doubt, self-worthlessness, would back me off of that high dive and down onto safe ground so quickly, I blurted out, "I'm going. Sign me up. I'm jumping into the deep end." And so there I was, 3 weeks later, my parents dropping me off and kind of shuttling me into the airport, this 12-year-old boy, getting on a plane from Vancouver to Philadelphia. And what I didn't know at the time was that I was about to be introduced to ingredient number 2. Because you see, what I've realized is that as we go out and we chase the things that we're most passionate about in life, we chase these big dreams and these goals, the world has this funny way of throwing up these huge obstacles in our path, just to test us, just to see how serious we are. And I was about to run headfirst into this. Ingredient number 2, I call the wall. Because when I landed in Philadelphia and I met my coach, thank goodness he was there, I realized that all my bags were lost. Anything that I could call my own on this adventure wouldn't be a part of the first couple weeks of my trip. As we were driving out of the airport, my coach informed me that we weren't actually going back to Philadelphia. He was going to take me to the University of New Jersey because he had gotten me into this amazing camp where I could play against the best players my age. And so, probably mostly out of fear, I asked him in the car ride, so you're going to be staying with us? You're going to be coaching my team, looking for some reassurance? He said, no, I've actually got to go back to Philadelphia to get our team ready. So I'll just drop you off at the front of the university, and 5 days later, I'll pick you up right there. It didn't hit me until I was standing in front of the University of Trenton, New Jersey, with a bag of clothes that I didn't own, that weren't mine, and my coach, who I had only met 3 hours prior, was driving off, that I was completely alone. My heart started beating a little faster. I felt my head start to slip below the water. And at this point, I just wanted to get inside of a room to process what the heck was going on. So I kind of dashed my way into the dorm rooms, met one of the coaches, got the keys to my room, and made it up to the 17th floor. And as I think in this flurry of just trying to get into a safe space, I started opening up the door and subconsciously realized that this might not be my room, because on the other side of this door is loud, gang-banging rap music. But it was too late. And I had walked into the room of 2 massive 300-pound university football athletes. And their shock at seeing this white little Canadian boy turned to rage as they started literally charging me. Get the F out of our room. You don't belong here. What are you doing here? I have never run down 17 flights of stairs so fast in my life. And now I'm on the verge of this nervous breakdown, and I'm pleading with the coaches to give me a key to my own room. And thankfully they did. I made it back up, I got into my room, I closed the door, and I melted onto that cold, hard cement floor. And I cried. And I cried, and I cried. I had hit the wall, and the wall had shattered me to pieces. And I cried myself to sleep the next 5 days. But there was another thing that I did, and that was every morning before camp started, I would wake up and I would go down to the lobby and I would pick up a payphone. There weren't really things as cell phones as prevalent those days. And I would call my parents. And I would beg them to let me come home. Please let me come home. This is too hard. I don't want to be here. Forget NCAA Division I. I can't even survive 5 days. And it was at this moment that I was introduced to ingredient number 3, your tribe. Because my parents did something on that trip that I still don't know how they did it. Every day, despite interjecting through my sobs and hyperventilation, they somehow convinced me. They convinced me to stay. They convinced me, even tricked me, that I could survive just one more day. And I realized at that moment that your tribe has this superhero power that you, on the course to your goal or your dream, you'll never have the luxury of possessing. They have this ability to pick you back up, put you back together again, and convince you that you can survive just one more day, despite you having given up on yourself. And one day turned into 5, and 5 days turned into 3 weeks. And before I knew it, I was at the end of this 6-week trip, and I had been invited to the ABC Adidas All-American Camp to truly play against some of the best players in the country. And I remember sitting on the plane on that final plane ride home from Philadelphia back to Vancouver, and I had this conversation with myself. Tyrell, those first 5 days, you thought you were going to die. You were drowning. But you didn't. It actually wasn't that bad. You survived. And then I realized you didn't just survive, you thrived. Then the light bulb moment went off in my head. Tyrell, if you can do this, what can't you do? And I took those 3 ingredients and I took that moment, that subtle swagger, that subtle confidence with me for the next 7 years, all the way until I sat down and signed that $200,000 NCAA Division I contract. But looking back on that story years later, I realized that there was something way bigger at play than just trying to be a good basketball player. I had stumbled upon this equation where I was going out and chasing the things that I was so passionate about, chasing my dream, and putting all these ingredients at play, where I created this environment where I was performing at my very best. I realized that I learned things in 6 weeks that it takes some people years to learn. I was in this environment of full flow, full performance. I was living the very best version of myself. And I realized at that moment, and in the years to come, I kind of articulated it, that I don't really care about going out and chasing a whole bunch of money, or chasing a whole bunch of things, or statuses, or titles. My focus and my goal in life is to figure out ways that I can architect those 3 ingredients into every single day. Because when those things are present, I'm living at my best. And when I look out into the world, I start to see the people who are really changing the game, the people who are really moving mountains, are figuring out how to do this over the course of months, years, decades, and a lifetime. And so I want to pause for a second before I close and ask you about your 3 ingredients. What does the high dive look like in your life? Are you at the top, just peeking over, trying to convince yourself to take that leap? Or maybe you're at the bottom, and you're just thinking about what that idea could be, and it doesn't really matter. But know that one day you'll be up there. And I want to encourage you to listen to your gut and take that leap. And as you jump, acknowledge that there will be a wall, and you will run head first into it. And I guarantee it will break you. And that's okay. In fact, my wife reminds me that that actually means you're on the right path. You're exactly where you need to be. But you need to have already thought about the question, who is your tribe? Who are those people that know where you're going and can use their superhero power to pick you back up, put you back together again, and convince you, trick you even, that you can survive one more day? As for me, 20 years later, the vehicle has certainly changed, but the equation, the ingredients, have largely stayed the same. I'm on a 2,100-day journey to go from 0 to the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, throwing discus for Team Canada. And over the next 1,183 days, I will go through this cycle over and over again. I will hurl myself off the high dive. I will run straight out of my comfort zone and flat into the wall. And it will shatter me to pieces. And there will be times, as there already have been, where I will come crawling back to my tribe, my wife Tash, and my coach Garrett. And I will beg them to let me give up. I will beg them to tell me I'm not good enough. But they'll use that power, that magic, and they'll convince me somehow that I can survive just one more day. And then I will thrive. And you will see me 3 years from now competing on the world stage alongside the world's very best. And if you're watching, which I encourage all of you to do, I want you to look closely, because you'll see a little grin on my face. It's not because I'm at the Olympics. It's not because I've just achieved this lifelong dream. It's because in the back of my mind, I'm looking back and I'm acknowledging just how far I've come, just how much I've learned, just how many days I've been able to spend at my absolute best. And as I glimpse to the future, that next mountain, I'm reminding myself Tyrell, if you can do this, what can't you do? And so today I want to encourage each and every one of you, when you're ready to take that leap, chase your crazy dream, and remind yourself of that question along the way. Thank you very much. Thank you.